My name is Ileana. I am 30 years old and I live in New York. I pressed the submit payment button on my laptop screen. The balance finally dropped to zero. It took me 5 years of working double shifts, eating cheap noodles, and skipping vacations, but I had done it. I had secretly paid off every cent of the $680,000 mortgage on my parents' house. I wanted to surprise them. I wanted to finally be the daughter they were proud of. My phone rang. It was my father. "Ileana," he said. His voice was happy, but not for me. "We have big news. We've decided to give the house to Dylan. It's his graduation gift." I froze. My hand gripped the edge of the kitchen table so hard my knuckles turned white. "What?" I asked. "Dad, He cut me off. "He needs a head start. He's the man of the family now. We're throwing a celebration dinner tonight to hand him the keys." I waited for the invitation. I waited for him to acknowledge me. "It's a happy occasion, Ileana," he said, his voice becoming cold and flat. "So, please don't come. We don't want you ruining the mood with your drama." The line went dead. I looked at the zero balance on my screen. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt something inside me break, and then something else woke up. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Ileana. I am 30 years old. I grew up in Rochester, New York. It is a place where the winters are long, the sky is often gray, and the snow piles up high against the doors. The cold outside was easy to handle. You just put on a coat, you put on boots, you wore a scarf, but the cold inside my house was different. There was no coat thick enough to protect me from it. My family looked normal from the outside. My father, Frank, owned a local auto repair shop. My mother, Susan, worked part-time at a bakery. And then there was my younger brother, Dylan. He was 2 years younger than me. In my parents' eyes, he was the sun, and I was just a shadow that happened to be in the room. I learned very early that there were 2 sets of rules in our house. There were rules for Ileana, and there were rules for Dylan. When I was 10 years old, I fell off my bicycle. I scraped my knee badly. Blood ran down my shin and soaked into my white sock. I limped home, crying, holding my bike with one hand. I walked into the kitchen expecting my mother to help me. She was at the sink, washing vegetables. Dylan was sitting at the table, eating a bowl of ice cream. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking. "I fell." She turned around. She looked at my bloody leg. She didn't rush to me. She didn't gasp. She sighed. It was a heavy, annoyed sound. "Ileana, look at that mess," she said. "You're going to stain the carpet. Go to the bathroom and clean yourself up. And don't use the good towels." I nodded. I held back my tears because I knew crying would only annoy her more. I went to the bathroom, washed the cut with stinging soap, and put a bandage on it myself. A week later, Dylan got a paper cut. It was a tiny slice on his finger from a comic book. He yelled like he had lost a limb. My father rushed in from the living room. My mother dropped her laundry basket. They fussed over him. My mother kissed his finger. My father promised to buy him a new video game to make him feel better. I watched from the hallway. That was the moment I realized, I am on my own. This dynamic didn't change as we got older. In fact, it got worse. I became the easy child, the one who didn't need anything, the one who was self-sufficient, but I wasn't self-sufficient because I wanted to be. I was self-sufficient because I had to be. In high school, I was a straight-A student. I studied late into the night. I made my own flashcards. I handed in every assignment on time. When report cards came, I would leave mine on the kitchen counter, hoping for a good job, Ileana. My father would glance at it while drinking his coffee. "Good," he would say. Then he would put his mug on top of it. Then he would look at Dylan's report card. Dylan was failing math. He was barely passing history. He skipped classes. "Susan," my father would yell, "we need to get Dylan a tutor. The teachers aren't supporting him enough. He has so much potential, they just don't see it." They spent thousands of dollars on tutors for Dylan. They bought him a new laptop because he said his old one was too slow for studying. He used it for gaming. When I needed a calculator for calculus, they told me to ask a friend to borrow one because money was tight. Money was always tight for me, but it was never tight for Dylan. I remember my 16th birthday. I didn't want a party. I just wanted a family dinner. I asked for pizza. That night my father came home late from the shop. He looked tired. He sat down at the table and didn't say happy birthday. "Dylan got into a fight at school," he said, looking at my mother. "He's suspended for 3 days. It wasn't his fault. The other kid provoked him." My mother looked worried. "Is he okay? Is he upstairs?" "Yeah, he's upset," Dad said. I'm going to take him out for burgers. He needs to blow off some steam. They both stood up. They grabbed their keys. What about dinner? I asked quietly. It's my birthday. My father looked at me like he had forgotten I was there. Ileana, don't be selfish right now. Your brother is having a crisis. There's frozen lasagna in the freezer. You know how to work the oven. They left. The house was silent. I cooked the lasagna. I ate it alone at the kitchen table. I didn't cry. I washed my plate. I dried it. I put it away. I learned the lesson. Don't ask. Don't expect. Don't need. By the time I was 18, I was invisible. I applied to colleges on my own. I filled out financial aid forms on my own. I got a scholarship that covered my tuition, and I worked 2 jobs to pay for my rent and books. My parents didn't contribute a cent. They told their friends, Ileana is so independent, we raised her to be strong. They took credit for my survival, even though they were the ones I was surviving against. Dylan, meanwhile, went to a private college. My parents took out loans to pay for it. They bought him a car so he could drive back and forth. They paid his rent. They sent him grocery money. I watched it all happen from a distance. I lived in a small apartment with 2 roommates. I ate rice and beans. I wore shoes until the soles had holes in them, but I never asked them for help. I knew the answer would be no, or worse, they would give me money and then hold it over my head forever. But Dylan took and took, and they gave and gave. I thought moving out would free me. I thought if I had my own life, their neglect wouldn't hurt anymore. But you can never really escape your family, especially when they start drowning, and they expect you to be the lifeboat. It happened 3 years after I finished college. I was 25. I was working as a junior project manager at a logistics firm. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it was steady. I was good at organizing chaos. I was good at fixing problems. I went to visit my parents on a Sunday. I tried to visit once a month. It was an obligation, like going to the dentist. I didn't enjoy it, but I felt like I had to do it. When I walked into the house, it felt heavy. The air was stale. The curtains were drawn. My mother was sitting on the couch watching TV, but she wasn't really watching. She was staring through the screen. "Where's Dad?" I asked. "In the garage," she said. She didn't look up. I went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. That's when I saw it. The kitchen table was usually messy, but this was different. There were stacks of paper everywhere. Envelopes. Some were opened, but most were closed. They were piled up like little towers of failure. I picked one up. It was a final notice from the electric company. I picked up another. A credit card bill, overdue. Then I saw the big envelopes with red stamps. Bank of America. Mortgage default notice. Foreclosure warning. My heart stopped. I felt a cold sweat break out on my neck. I opened the foreclosure letter. The date was 2 weeks ago. It said they were 3 months behind on the mortgage. It said the bank was preparing to seize the property. The house. The house I grew up in. The house they bought when I was 2. The house they were so proud of. It was about to be gone. I walked out to the garage. My father was sitting on a stool, wiping his hands on a greasy rag. The auto shop had been struggling for years. Newer, bigger chain repair shops had opened up in town, and my father refused to modernize. He still did everything on paper. He was losing customers every day. "Dad," I said. I held up the letter. He looked at it. His face went gray, then it went red. "What are you doing going through my mail?" he snapped. He snatched the letter from my hand. "It was on the table, Dad. It says foreclosure. Are you losing the house?" "It's a mistake," he said, turning his back to me. "The bank made a mistake. I'm handling it." "You're 3 months behind," I said. My voice was calm, but inside I was screaming. "Dad, the shop isn't making money, is it?" He threw the rag on the floor. "Business is slow. It happens. I'm waiting on a big job. Once that check clears, I'll pay the bank. It's fine. Don't worry your pretty little head about it." He was lying. I could tell by the way his shoulders were hunched. He was terrified, but his pride was too big to let him admit it. I went back inside to my mother. "Mom, did you know about this?" She looked at me with teary eyes. "Your father says it's under control. He doesn't like me to ask about money. He gets angry." "If the bank takes the house, where will you go?" I asked. "Where will Dylan go?" Dylan was still living at home. He had graduated college, barely, but he didn't have a job. He was trying to find himself. He lived in the basement, playing video games and eating the food my parents couldn't afford. "I don't know," Mom whispered. "Ileana, we can't lose this house. It's all we have." I looked at her. She looked so small and helpless. For all her neglect, for all the times she ignored me, she was still my mother. And my father, for all his stubbornness, was an old man who was failing. If they lost the house, they would have nothing. They had no savings. They had no retirement fund. They would be on the street. And somehow, I knew that if that happened, they would end up on my doorstep. I went home that night and I couldn't sleep. I paced around my small apartment. I looked at my bank account. I had saved money. I was frugal. I didn't buy new clothes. I drove a 10-year-old Honda. I had a savings account that was meant for my future, for a house of my own one day. I did the math. The remaining mortgage on their house was $680,000. It was a huge number. They had refinanced it years ago to pay for the shop and for Dylan's college, and they had barely paid any of the principal down. If I helped them, it would take everything I had. It would take my monthly salary. It would mean I couldn't save for myself. It would mean I would be stuck in my apartment for years. But I couldn't let them become homeless. I couldn't watch them fail. The next day, I called a family meeting. I sat them down, Dad, Mom, and Dylan. I've looked at the numbers, I said. I laid out a spreadsheet I had made. You are drowning. The bank is going to take the house in 30 days. We know, okay, Dylan snapped. Why do you have to be so dramatic? Dad said he has a plan. Dad's plan isn't real, I said sharply. I looked at my father. You don't have the money coming, do you? My father looked at the floor. He didn't speak. I have a proposal, I said. I will take over the mortgage payments, all of them. I will pay the arrears to stop the foreclosure, and I will make the monthly payments until the house is paid off. The room went silent. My mother gasped. Dylan looked surprised. My father looked up, his eyes wide. You have that kind of money? He asked. There was no thank you in his voice, just shock that I, the invisible daughter, had value. I have a job, I said. I budget. I can do this, but there are conditions. Conditions? My father bristled. Since when do children give conditions to their parents? Since the child becomes the one paying for the roof over your head, I said. It was the boldest thing I had ever said to him. Here is the deal, I continued. I pay the mortgage directly to the bank. You don't touch the money. You focus on paying the utilities and buying food. And Dylan, I looked at my brother, you need to get a job to help with groceries. Dylan rolled his eyes. Yeah, whatever. And one more thing, I said. We need to put this in writing. I want to make sure that my investment is protected. We're family, my mother cried. Why do we need legal papers? Don't you trust us? It's not about trust, I lied. It was absolutely about trust. It's about being smart. My father sighed. He looked defeated. Fine, whatever, just fix it. Get the bank off my back. They agreed. They didn't hug me. They didn't cry with relief. They just looked at me like I was a mechanic who had finally arrived to fix a broken engine. I left that night feeling a strange mixture of pride and dread. I had saved them. I was the hero. But I also felt a heavy chain wrap around my ankles. I had just signed away my freedom for the next 5 years. I went to work the next day and set up the automatic transfers. $680,000. It felt like a mountain. But I was used to climbing mountains alone. I didn't know then that I was making a mistake. I didn't know that by saving them, I was giving them the weapon they would eventually use to stab me in the back. I just thought I was doing the right thing. I was wrong. Before I paid the first cent to the bank, I made one phone call. I called my Uncle Edward. Edward was my mother's older brother. He was the black sheep of the family, mostly because he was successful and didn't put up with my father's nonsense. He was a retired contract lawyer who lived in a clean, quiet condo downtown. He was the only person in my family who ever asked me, "How are you doing, Ileana?" and actually waited for the answer. I went to his condo on a Tuesday evening. I sat at his glass dining table and told him everything. I told him about the foreclosure letters, the $680,000 debt, and my plan to pay it off. Edward listened. He drank his tea. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he put his cup down hard. "You are a good daughter," he said, "but you are being an idiot." "I can't let them be homeless, Uncle Ed," I said. "I know," he sighed. "Frank and Susan are children in adult bodies. They always have been. If you just give them money, Ileana, they will burn it, and when the house is paid off, they will forget you ever helped." "They wouldn't," I said. "They're my parents." Edward looked at me with sad eyes. "You know they would. We need to protect you. If you are paying the mortgage, you are buying the equity. That house is effectively becoming yours. We need paper." "Dad won't sign a deed transfer," I said. "His pride is too big. He needs to feel like he still owns it." "Then we create a trust," Edward said. "A living trust. We frame it as asset protection to keep the creditors away from the shop. We tell Frank it protects him. But in the fine print, the trust states that you are the trustee and the primary beneficiary. It states that the property cannot be sold, transferred, or gifted without the trustee's signature. That's you. Will they sign it? If they are scared enough of the bank, they will sign anything, Edward said. We went to the house 3 days later. Edward brought a notary. My father was grumpy. He didn't like Edward. He thought Edward looked down on him. This is just legal mumbo-jumbo to keep the bank off your back, Frank, Edward told him smoothly. It secures the asset. It means the creditors from the auto shop can't touch the house. My father's eyes lit up. So it protects me. Exactly, Edward lied. It protects the house. My father signed, my mother signed. They didn't read the clauses on page 14. They didn't read the section about the constructive trust or the beneficiary rights. They just wanted the problem to go away. Once the papers were filed, my life stopped. For the next 5 years, I became a machine. My annual salary was $85,000. After taxes, I took home about $5,500 a month. The mortgage payment on my parents' house was $3,800. Do the math. That left me with $1,700 a month to live on. In New York, I moved out of my nice apartment and into a basement studio with no windows. It smelled like damp earth when it rained. I stopped going to restaurants. I stopped buying clothes. When my friends planned a trip to Mexico for spring break, I told them I was busy at work. I wasn't busy. I was broke. I ate peanut butter sandwiches for lunch. I walked to work to save bus fare. I canceled my Netflix subscription. I canceled my gym membership and ran in the park instead. Every month on the 1st, I transferred the money, $3,800 sent, and every month I visited my parents. These visits were the hardest part. It wasn't the money that hurt the most. It was the erasure. My father's auto shop actually started to do a little better because he wasn't stressed about the house payments. But instead of saving that extra money or offering to pay me back, he spent it. One Sunday, I came over for dinner. There was a brand new 60-inch flat-screen TV on the wall. Nice TV, I said. I was wearing a sweater I had owned since college. It had a small hole in the elbow. Yeah, my father beamed. Got a great deal on it. You know, business is picking up. I've been working hard. It's nice to finally see some rewards for my hard work. He looked at me. He didn't say, thanks to you paying the mortgage, I could afford this. He said, I worked hard. I looked at my mother. She was setting the table. Dinner is ready, she said softly. She knew exactly where the money was coming from, but she never corrected him. She preferred peace over truth. Then there was Dylan. Dylan was still living at home, rent-free. He was 25 now. He had started a business, selling vintage sneakers online. It mostly involved him buying expensive shoes with my parents' credit cards and selling them for a loss. Hey, Ileana, he said that night, eating a steak my father had grilled. You look tired. You have bags under your eyes. I'm working a lot, I said, cutting my chicken. You should travel, Dylan said with a mouth full of food. I'm thinking of going to Japan next month to source sneakers. Dad said he might spot me the ticket. I dropped my fork. It clattered loudly on the plate. Dad, I said, you're paying for Dylan to go to Japan. My father grew defensive. It's an investment, Ileana. The boy is an entrepreneur. He needs capital. You don't understand business. I understand math, I said, my voice tight. I understand that I am paying your mortgage so you can have a roof, and you are using your extra cash to send Dylan on vacation. It's not a vacation, Dylan yelled. It's work. Enough, my father slammed his hand on the table. I don't want to hear about money at the dinner table. It's rude. Ileana, if you're going to be bitter, you can leave. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table. I wanted to scream, I own you. I am the only reason you are sitting here. But I didn't. I needed them to stay in the house. If I stopped paying, the bank would foreclose, the credit would be ruined, and all the money I had already paid would be lost. I was trapped by my own investment, so I finished my dinner. I washed the dishes, and I went back to my windowless basement. This went on for 5 years. I watched my friends get married. I watched them buy their own houses. I watched them get promotions. I stayed in the same place. I was a ghost in my own life, fueling the lives of 3 people who didn't respect me. But I had a calendar on my wall. I crossed off every month. 60 payments. 59, 58, 10, 5, 1. I kept my eye on the finish line. I told myself that once the debt was gone, everything would change. They would have to acknowledge me then. They would have to say, Ileana, you saved us. I was so naive. The last month felt like holding my breath underwater. It was May. The air was getting warm. Dylan was finally graduating from a jagged path of online courses and community college credits. He was getting a degree in general studies. It had taken him 7 years. My parents were treating it like he had won a Nobel Prize. We're going to have a huge party, my mother told me on the phone. A barbecue, all the relatives are coming, even your cousins from Ohio. That sounds nice, I said. I'm almost done with the mortgage, Mom. The last payment is next week. Oh, that's good, she said vaguely, like I had said I was done with my laundry. Anyway, we need to order a tent. Do you think blue or gold colors for the napkins? She didn't care. The mortgage was just a bill that got paid by magic. The magic was me. On the morning of May 15th, I sat at my laptop. The balance on the loan showed $3,215.44. My bank account showed $4,000. This was it. My hand shook a little as I moved the mouse. I wasn't just paying off a loan. I was buying my freedom. I was buying my future back. I imagined calling my dad and saying, "It's done, the house is safe, forever." I imagined him crying. I imagined him hugging me. I clicked submit payment. A spinning wheel. Then, a green check mark. Loan paid in full. I sat back in my cheap, creaky office chair. I let out a breath that I felt like I had been holding since I was 25 years old. I was 30 now. I had given my 20s to them, but it was over. I waited for a notification. Maybe the bank sent an email to my father. I waited an hour. I waited 2. Around 4 p.m. my phone rang. Dad flashed on the screen. I smiled. This was it. He had seen the email. He was calling to thank me. Hello, I answered, my voice bright. Ileana, he said. The tone was wrong. It wasn't grateful. It wasn't emotional. It was brisk, businesslike. But there was an undercurrent of excitement, just not for me. Hi, Dad, did you get the email from the bank? I asked. Yeah, I saw something come through, he said dismissively. That's actually why I'm calling. It's perfect timing. It is, I agreed. I'm so relieved. Listen, he said. We've been talking, me and your mother. Okay, with the house finally clear and Dylan graduating this weekend. We want to do something special for him. He's the man of the family now. He needs a foundation. A head start? My stomach tightened. What do you mean? We're giving the house to Dylan, he said. The words didn't make sense at first. It was like he was speaking a foreign language. What? We're gifting the house to him, my father repeated, louder this time, as if I were deaf. We're going to sign the deed over to him at his graduation party on Saturday. It's a surprise. A graduation gift. It's fully paid off now, so it's the perfect asset for him to start his life. I couldn't breathe, my vision blurred. Dad, I whispered, you can't give him the house. Excuse me, his voice dropped an octave. It became dangerous. It is my house, Ileana. I can do whatever the hell I want with it. I paid for it, I screamed. The sound tore out of my throat. I paid $680,000. I paid every single month for 5 years. You didn't pay a dime, how can you give it to him? Stop being so dramatic, he snapped. You helped out, we appreciate it, that's what family does. But Dylan is your brother, he needs this more than you. You have a career, you're independent. You're fine, Dylan needs stability. I lived in a basement. I was crying now, hot, angry tears. I ate noodles for 5 years so you wouldn't be homeless, and you're giving my sacrifice to him. It's not your sacrifice, he said coldly. It's our house, and we have made a decision. There was a silence on the line, a heavy, cruel silence. Also, he said, clearing his throat, about the party on Saturday. I'm coming, I said. I'm coming and I'm telling everyone the truth. No, he said. You're not, we don't want you there, Ileana. What? You're too emotional, you're jealous of your brother, I can hear it in your voice. You'll make a scene. You'll ruin his big moment. So you are not invited. Stay in the city, we'll send you some pictures. You're disinviting me, I asked, my voice breaking into a whisper. After I just saved you. We're protecting the family peace, he said. Goodbye, Ileana. Click. He hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand. The screen went black. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't smash my laptop. I sat very still. The tears stopped. The sadness evaporated. In its place, something else filled my chest. It was cold. It was heavy. It was sharp. It was clarity. They didn't love me. They never had. To them, I wasn't a daughter. I was a wallet. I was a tool. And now that the job was done, they were throwing the tool away so they could give the prize to the golden child. They thought I was weak. They thought I was the obedient, quiet girl who would cry in her pillow and accept it. They thought I would just go away. They had forgotten one thing. They had forgotten who I went to see 5 years ago. They had forgotten the papers they signed. I stood up. I wiped my face. I walked to my small filing cabinet in the corner of the room. I opened the bottom drawer. I pulled out a thick blue folder. The ELIANA Trust. I opened it. I looked at the signature on the bottom of the transfer of deeds clause. Frank Miller, Susan Miller. I looked at the clause regarding unauthorized transfer of assets. I picked up my phone. I didn't call my father back. I dialed a different number. "Hello," a calm, deep voice answered. "Uncle Edward," I said. My voice was steady. "It's time." "Did they do it?" he asked. He didn't sound surprised. "They tried," I said. "They are trying to gift the house to Dylan on Saturday, and they told me not to come." I heard a long sigh on the other end. Then, the sound of a chair scraping, like he was standing up. "Meet me at Patrick O'Neill's office tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., Edward said. "Bring the folder, and Eliana." "Yes. Wear a nice suit. We are going to war." Saturday arrived with a bright, mocking sun. The sky was a perfect, cloudless blue. It was the kind of day designed for backyard barbecues, ice-cold lemonade, and families laughing together on the lawn. I was not at the lawn. I was in my apartment, sitting on my floor, staring at a blank wall. My phone was on the floor next to me. I had muted it, but I watched the screen light up every few minutes. Photos were flooding onto social media. My cousin Sarah posted a selfie with a glass of champagne. Graduation celebration. So proud of Dylan. My aunt posted a video of the catering truck pulling into the driveway. They were celebrating on the grass I had paid to maintain. They were eating food bought with money that should have gone to the mortgage I had cleared. I wasn't invited. My Uncle Edward was there, though. He had called me that morning. "I'm going," he had said. "I need to be there to witness the transfer. If they try to hand over a deed, I need to see it. Stay by your phone, Eliana." So I waited. I imagined the scene. I knew exactly how it would go. My father would be wearing his Sunday best, a polo shirt tucked into khakis. My mother would be fluttering around, making sure everyone had a drink, playing the perfect hostess. Dylan would be holding court, wearing his graduation cap even though the ceremony was over, soaking up the attention like a sponge. Around 2 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from Edward. "Speech is starting now. Dad is standing on the porch." I closed my eyes. I could almost hear my father's voice. He loved speeches. He loved the sound of his own authority. Later, Edward told me exactly what happened. He recounted every word, every gesture, so clearly that I felt like I was standing right there in the garden. My father had tapped a spoon against a wine glass. The chatter died down. The family, aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors turned to look at him. Dylan stood next to him, grinning, holding a beer. "Thank you all for coming," my father began, his chest puffed out. "Today is a proud day, a very proud day. My son Dylan has graduated." Applause, cheers. "It hasn't been an easy road," Dad continued, wiping a fake tear from his eye. "We've had hard times, the business struggled, the economy was tough, but we pulled through. I worked day and night to keep this roof over our heads. I sacrificed everything to make sure this home was safe for my family." He paused for effect. He didn't mention me. He didn't mention the 5 years of payments. He didn't mention that while he was working day and night, I was the one paying the bank. "And now," Dad said, putting a hand on Dylan's shoulder, "we want to give Dylan a head start. A man needs a castle. So Susan and I have decided to give this house, free and clear, fully paid off by my hard work, to Dylan." The crowd gasped. It was a massive gift. A $680,000 gift. "Here are the keys, son," Dad said, pulling a shiny new set of keys from his pocket. "It's yours. The deed is being transferred on Monday." Dylan reached for the keys. The crowd started to clap. "Stop," the voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the applause like a knife. Uncle Edward stepped forward from the back of the crowd. He was wearing a dark gray suit, looking like a storm cloud in a field of sunflowers. "Edward," my father frowned, "we're in the middle of a toast." "You can't gift this house, Frank," Edward said. He walked up the porch steps. He didn't look at the guests. He looked only at my father. "What are you talking about?" "Sit down, you're drunk," Dad snapped, though Edward hadn't touched a drop of alcohol. "I'm not drunk," Edward said calmly. "And you are not the owner of this house, not really." The guests started to whisper. The clapping died. "I am the owner," Dad shouted, his face turning red. "My name is on the deed." "Your name is on the deed inside a trust," Edward corrected him. A trust that requires the signature of the trustee for any transfer, sale, or gift. And you are not the trustee. Dylan looked confused. He lowered his hand, the keys dangling from his father's fingers unaccepted. Dad, what is he talking about? He's talking nonsense, Dad yelled. Get off my porch, Edward. Ileana paid the mortgage, Edward said. He turned to the crowd. He spoke clearly. For 5 years, every single month, Ileana paid $680,000. She saved this house from foreclosure when Frank here was bankrupt. And the papers you signed, Frank, they made her the trustee. My mother dropped a tray of appetizers. It crashed on the wooden deck. You can't give this house to Dylan, Edward finished. Because it belongs to Ileana, and she didn't approve this transfer. My father looked like he was going to explode. She's my daughter, she did what she was told. I make the decisions. Not legally, you don't, Edward said. The party fractured. The silence was heavy and awkward. People started checking their watches. Cousins started drifting toward the gate. The celebration of Dylan's success had turned into a public exposure of my father's lie. My phone buzzed again. Edward, it's done. They are furious. Get ready. I sat in my apartment, miles away. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt a deep, aching sadness that it had come to this. My father would rather lie to everyone he knew than admit his daughter saved him. He hated me for it. And now the war had officially begun. 3 days after the party, I drove to the house. I hadn't heard from my parents. No angry calls, no apologies, just radio silence. It was unnerving. I needed to see what was happening. I needed to see if they were actually moving forward with the transfer, or if Edward's interruption had stopped them. I pulled into the driveway. My father's truck was there. Dylan's car, a leased BMW that my parents paid for, was parked in the center of the driveway, blocking the path to the garage. It was a power move. I park where I want. I walked up the front path. The congratulations graduate banner was still hanging on the porch, one side drooping sadly. I took out my key. It was the same key I had carried since high school. The brass was worn smooth by my thumb. I slid it into the lock. It didn't go in. I frowned and tried again. I jiggled it. Nothing. The keyway was different. It was smaller, tighter. I stepped back and looked at the doorknob. It was brand new, shiny nickel. They had changed the locks. I stood there for a moment, staring at the metal. It was such a small thing, a lock, but the message was loud. You don't live here. You don't belong here. You are a stranger. I knocked, hard. A minute later, the door opened. It was Dylan. He was wearing sweatpants and no shirt. He was holding a bowl of cereal. He looked at me through the screen door, chewing slowly. He didn't open the screen. What do you want? He asked. My key doesn't work, I said. Yeah, he said. Dad changed them on Sunday, said we couldn't trust who had access to the house anymore. Security risk. I'm a security risk, I asked, my voice trembling with rage. I paid for this door, Dylan. I paid for the floor you're standing on. Dylan rolled his eyes. He opened the screen door and stepped out onto the porch, closing the main door behind him so I couldn't see inside. But I saw enough. I saw boxes in the hallway. I saw my mother's favorite painting taken down. I saw a guitar case leaning against the wall where the coat rack used to be. Look, Ileana, Dylan said, leaning against the railing. I know you think you're some kind of martyr because you paid some bills. Dad told me about the trust thing. He says it's bogus. He says he's going to a lawyer to get it thrown out. It's not bogus, I said. It's the law. Whatever, Dylan smirked. He looked so entitled, so comfortable in his theft. Possession is 9/10 of the law, right? I'm moving in. Dad and Mom are moving to the in-law suite in the back until they find a condo. This is my house now. Dad gave it to me. He can't give what isn't his, I said. He just did, Dylan shrugged. I'm moving my stuff into the master bedroom today, so you can go run to your little lawyer, but I'm already here. And you're out. He took another bite of cereal. He looked at me not with anger, but with pity, as if I were a pathetic, jealous sister trying to ruin his vibe. You know, he said, milk dripping down his chin. You should be happy for me. I finally got my life together, but you're just bitter. That's why Mom and Dad like me better. I'm not so heavy. That word hit me harder than the lock. Heavy. My sacrifice was heavy. My love was heavy. My need for fairness was heavy. They wanted light. They wanted easy. They wanted the lie. Dylan, I said quietly, if you move into that room, if you accept this stolen gift, you are losing a sister. You understand that? This is it. He looked at me. He didn't hesitate. Bye, Ileana. He turned around, walked back inside, and slammed the heavy wooden door. I heard the deadbolt slide into place. Click. I stood on the porch of the house I had saved. I was locked out. They expected me to cry. They expected me to pound on the door and beg. They expected me to vanish into the night, defeated by their united front. I walked back to my car. I didn't look back. I didn't cry. I reached for my phone and called Patrick O'Neill. "Patrick," I said when he answered. "They changed the locks. Dylan is moving in." "Okay," Patrick said. His voice was sharp, professional. "That is an illegal eviction and a breach of the trust. Did you document it?" "I have photos of the new locks," I said. "Good, come to my office. Bring the bank statements. Bring the emails, bring everything. We are done being nice." "I'm ready," I said. I started the engine. As I drove away, I realized that the Ileana who had paid the mortgage for 5 years, the hopeful, desperate daughter, was dead. She had died on that porch. The woman driving the car was someone new. And she wasn't asking for permission anymore. Patrick O'Neill's office smelled like old books and expensive coffee. It was a place of order. A place where feelings didn't matter, only facts. I sat at a large mahogany conference table. Uncle Edward was there, sitting next to me. Across from us sat Patrick. He was a small man with glasses, but he had the eyes of a shark. I spread my life out on the table. 5 years of bank statements. 60 wire transfer confirmations. The foreclosure notices from 5 years ago. And the trust document, signed by Frank and Susan Miller. Patrick picked up the trust document. He adjusted his glasses. He read it silently for 5 minutes. The room was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Finally, he looked up. A small, cold smile played on his lips. "This is bulletproof," Patrick said. I let out a breath. "Are you sure?" "Dylan said Dad is going to get it thrown out." "On what grounds?" Patrick asked. "Duress? No, they signed it before a notary. Fraud? No, you held up your end of the bargain, you paid the mortgage. The terms are clear. Section 4, paragraph B. The grantors, your parents, acknowledge that the trustee, you holds equitable title to the property in consideration of debt relief." Patrick leaned forward. "Ileana, legally, you don't just control the house. For all intents and purposes, you are the house. They are guests who have overstayed their welcome. They changed the locks," Uncle Edward reminded him. "They are claiming adverse possession or some nonsense." "Changing the locks on the trustee is a hostile act," Patrick said. He pulled out a yellow legal pad. "Here is what we are going to do. We aren't going to sue them for money. We are going to enforce the trust." "What does that look like?" I asked. "It looks like an eviction," Patrick said. The word hung in the air. Eviction, evicting my parents, evicting my brother. It sounded cruel. It sounded like something a villain would do in a movie. "I don't want to throw them on the street," I said softly. "They threw you on the street," Edward said. "Ileana, they locked you out. They took your $680,000 and slammed the door in your face. This isn't revenge, this is consequences." Patrick nodded. "We will file an emergency injunction to freeze the transfer of the deed. If your father tries to sign that house over to Dylan, he will be in contempt of court. That's a crime. Then we serve them with a notice to quit. It gives them 30 days to vacate the property or sign a lease agreement with you at market rent." "Market rent?" I asked. "Yes," Patrick said. "If they want to stay, they pay you. If Dylan wants to live there, he pays you. You are the landlord now." I looked down at the papers. I looked at the signatures of the parents who had ignored me my whole life. The parents who had fed Dylan steak while I ate peanut butter. The parents who called me heavy because I carried their burdens. They had bet everything on the idea that I was too weak to fight back. They thought I loved them too much to hurt them. But they had killed that love. They had starved it until it died. "Do it," I said. Patrick nodded. He began typing on his laptop. The sound was rhythmic like a drum beat. "One more thing," I said. "The car, Dylan's BMW." "What about it?" Patrick asked. "My dad pays the lease," I said. "But the lease is in the business name, right?" "Likely," Edward said. "My dad's business accounts. I paid those off too, initially, to clear the credit for the mortgage refinancing years ago. My name is on the auto shop's credit line as a guarantor." Patrick stopped typing. He looked at me with respect. "You're a guarantor on the business credit line?" "Yes, I never took myself off." "Well," Patrick said, his smile widening. "If the guarantor feels the business is being mismanaged, say, by paying for a luxury car for a non-employee while the business is insolvent, the guarantor can freeze the line of credit." "Freeze it," I said. "If we freeze the line," Patrick warned, "the lease payment on the BMW will bounce. They'll repossess the car." I thought about Dylan standing on the porch, eating cereal, mocking me. Possession is 9/10 of the law. He likes walking, I said. Let him walk. We spent the next 2 hours drafting the motions. The injunction, the notice of trust enforcement, the credit freeze. It was a mountain of paperwork, a paper trail that fought back. For years, I had been invisible. But ink is visible, signatures are visible, the law is visible. When I left the office, the sun was setting. The city looked different. It didn't look like a place of struggle anymore. It looked like a place of opportunity. I wasn't a victim, not anymore, I was the plaintiff. Get some sleep, Uncle Edward said, squeezing my shoulder outside the office. Tomorrow, the sheriff serves the papers. It's going to be loud. Let it be loud, I said. I'm done being quiet. It happened on a Tuesday. I chose Tuesday because it is an ordinary day. It is not a day for drama. It is a day for business. And this was strictly business. I parked my car down the street. I didn't want them to see me yet. I sat in the driver's seat with Uncle Edward and Patrick. We watched. At 10 a.m., a large flatbed truck turned onto the street. It wasn't a delivery truck. It was a tow truck. It had the name of a repossession agency on the side. I watched it back slowly into my parents' driveway. The backup alarm beeped loudly. Beep, beep, beep. It cut through the quiet suburban morning. Neighbors started peeking out of their windows. Mrs. Gable next door came out onto her porch with her coffee cup. The truck driver got out. He didn't knock on the door. He walked straight to the white BMW parked in the center of the driveway. He started hooking chains to the axle. The front door of the house flew open. Dylan ran out. He was wearing boxer shorts and a t-shirt. He looked panicked. Hey, hey, Dylan screamed, running down the driveway without shoes. What are you doing? Get away from my car. The driver didn't stop. He cranked a lever. The back of the BMW lifted into the air. It's a mistake, Dylan yelled. My dad pays for this. Put it down. Then, the front door opened again. My father came out. He looked smaller than I remembered. He was wearing his work uniform, but he hadn't left for the shop yet. What is the meaning of this? My father shouted, marching down to the driver. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, the driver said calmly. He handed my father a slip of paper. Lease default. The credit line was frozen by the guarantor. The bank ordered immediate repossession. Frozen? My father's face went pale. He looked at the paper. He looked at the car rising into the air, tilting like a sinking ship. Who frozen it? I didn't freeze it. The guarantor did, the driver said. He got back into the truck. My father stood there, frozen, he knew. In that second he knew. He remembered the paperwork from years ago. He remembered that I was the safety net he had used to build his credit. And he realized the net had just been pulled away. Dylan was hitting the window of the truck. Dad, do something. He's taking my car. Stop it, Dylan, my father whispered. The truck roared to life. It pulled out of the driveway, dragging Dylan's status symbol with it. Dylan chased it to the end of the driveway, then stopped, defeated. He looked like a child whose toy had been taken away. That was the first strike. 5 minutes later, a black sedan pulled up. A man in a cheap suit got out. He walked up the path carrying a thick envelope. Frank Miller. Susan Miller, the man asked. What now? My father snapped. You have been served, the man said. He shoved the envelope into my father's chest. Notice of freezing of assets and trust enforcement. You have a court date on Thursday regarding the illegal lock change. My mother came to the door then. She looked terrified. Frank, what is happening? It's Ileana. My father spat the name out like poison. She's doing this. That was my cue. Let's go, Patrick said. We got out of my car. We walked up the driveway. I walked in the middle. Uncle Edward was on my left, Patrick on my right. I felt like a general walking onto a battlefield where the enemy was already wounded. My father saw me. His eyes bulged. He took a step toward me, his fists clenched. You, he roared. You ungrateful, spiteful little, Mr. Miller. Patrick stepped in front of me. His voice was calm but sharp as a razor. I wouldn't finish that sentence. Anything you say can be used against you in the harassment suit we are preparing to file. My father stopped. He breathed heavily. Harassment? She's stealing my house. She's stealing my son's car. I'm not stealing anything, I said. My voice was steady. It surprised me how steady it was. I wasn't shaking. I'm managing my assets. You taught me that, Dad. Business is business. We're family, my mother cried. She ran down the steps and tried to grab my hand. I pulled it away. Don't, I said. You didn't treat me like family when you locked me out. You didn't treat me like family when you disinvited me to the party. You treated me like an employee you fired. We were just trying to help Dylan, she sobbed. And you hurt me to do it, I said. You stole my money. You stole my 5 years of sacrifice, and you laughed about it. Dylan walked back up the driveway. He looked furious. You're a witch, Ileana. You're jealous because I'm the favorite. You can't handle that Dad loves me more. I don't care who he loves, I said. I looked him in the eye. I care about who owns the roof over your head. And guess what, Dylan? It's me. Patrick opened his briefcase. He pulled out a document. This is a notice to quit, Patrick said. Because you violated the terms of the trust by changing the locks and attempting an unauthorized deed transfer, Ileana is exercising her right as trustee. What does that mean? My father asked, his voice shaking. It means you have 2 choices, Patrick said. Choice A, you sign a lease agreement. The rent will be $3,500 a month market rate. You will pay Ileana directly. Dylan, if you want to stay, you will be listed as a tenant and you will pay $1,000 a month for your room. I don't have $1,000, Dylan yelled. Then you get a job, I said. Choice B, Patrick continued. You vacate the property, you have 30 days. Silence. The birds were singing, the sun was shining, but on that driveway the world had stopped. You would evict your own parents? My father asked. He looked at me with pure hatred. After everything we did for you. You did nothing for me, I said. I paid for my college, I paid for my car, and I paid for this house. You took everything I gave you and you gave it to Dylan. I'm done paying. I won't pay you rent, my father said. His pride was still fighting, even though he had already lost. I will never pay rent in my own house. It's not your house, Uncle Edward said. It hasn't been your house for 5 years, you just forgot. Fine, my father yelled. Fine, we'll leave, we don't want to live in a house owned by a traitor anyway. Good, I said. 30 days, and Dad. Don't try to take the copper pipes or the appliances. I have a detailed inventory. If anything is missing, I will call the police for theft. He looked at me like he didn't know me, and he didn't. He was looking at a woman he had created, but one he couldn't control. Give me the key, I said. What? The new key, for the new lock, give it to me. He reached into his pocket. He threw the keys at me. They hit my chest and fell to the pavement. I didn't flinch. I bent down and picked them up. I'll be back in 30 days for the final inspection, I said. Have the boxes packed. I turned around and walked back to the car. I didn't look back at my mother crying. I didn't look back at Dylan kicking the dirt. I didn't look back at my father, who was now an old man with nothing left but his pride. I got in the car. Patrick started the engine. Are you okay? Uncle Edward asked gently. I looked out the window as we drove away. For the first time in my life, the heavy weight on my chest was gone. I'm not okay, I said. I'm great. 30 days later, the house was empty. They actually left. I think my father couldn't stomach the idea of writing a check with my name on it every month. His ego was the only thing bigger than his debt. They moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. It was a rental. My mother told a cousin who told me that it was temporary until the business picked up. But the business wasn't going to pick up. The credit line was still frozen. My father was finally having to operate on cash, which meant he couldn't hide his failures anymore. Dylan had to move with them. He was sleeping on their couch. Without a car, and without my parents' endless supply of money, his entrepreneurial dreams had collapsed. I heard he got a job at a warehouse packing boxes. It was hard work. It was honest work. It was exactly what he needed. I stood in the living room of the empty house. It was silent. The carpet still had the indentations where the furniture used to be. The walls had square clean spots where the pictures had hung. It felt strange. This was the place where I had learned to be invisible. This was the kitchen where I had cooked my own birthday dinner. This was the hallway where I had watched them fawn over Dylan. But now, the ghosts were gone. I had exorcised them with ink and paper. So, Uncle Edward said, walking in behind me, "What are you going to do with it? Sell it?" I looked around. I thought about it. I could sell it, take the cash, and buy a condo in the city. Just walk away. That would be sensible, Edward said. But, I said, walking to the window, I realized something. If I sell it, I'm running away. I'm admitting that this place still haunts me. I ran my hand along the windowsill. I paid for this, I said. I earned every square inch of this floor. Why should I let them take the memory of it too? So, Edward asked. So I'm going to keep it, I said. But I'm going to change it. I'm going to renovate. I'm going to knock down the wall between the kitchen and the dining room. I'm going to paint over this depressing beige. I'm going to make it mine. And that is what I did. For the next 6 months, I poured my energy into that house. But this time, it wasn't a sacrifice. It was a creation. I hired contractors. I tore up the old carpets and put in hardwood floors. I painted the walls bright colors, yellow in the kitchen, soft blue in the bedroom. I turned Dylan's old room into a home office for myself. I moved in on a rainy Saturday in November. I sat on my new couch, drinking tea out of a mug that I liked. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. There is a difference. My phone rang. It was my mother. They had called a few times over the months. Usually it was to complain. The apartment was too small. The neighbors were noisy. Dylan was depressed. They never asked how I was. They only called to tell me how much I had ruined their lives. I looked at the screen. Mom. In the past, I would have answered. I would have felt guilty. I would have listened to her guilt trip me for an hour. But I wasn't that person anymore. I pressed the decline button. I didn't block them. I just chose not to engage. I realized that I didn't need their forgiveness. I didn't need them to understand. I didn't even need them to love me. I loved myself enough for all of us. The next week, I hosted a dinner party. I invited Uncle Edward, Patrick, and my friends from work, the ones I had ignored for 5 years because I was too broke to go out. We sat at a long table in the dining room. The house was full of laughter. It was full of warmth. There was no tension. There was no favorite child. There was just good food and good people. Uncle Edward raised a glass. To the homeowner, he smiled. To Eliana, my friends cheered. I smiled. I looked around the room. I looked at the walls I had painted. I thought about the $680,000. People might say it was a waste of money. They might say I lost 5 years of my life. But as I took a sip of wine, I realized it was the best money I ever spent. It cost $680,000 to learn that I was worth more than they ever told me. It cost $680,000 to buy my spine. It cost $680,000 to learn how to say no. I put my glass down. I looked out the window at the dark street. Somewhere out there, my family was angry. They were blaming me. They were telling themselves a story where I was the villain. Let them tell it. I have my own story now. And in this story, I am the one holding the pen. I am Eliana. I am the girl who was invisible. But now, I am the woman standing in the center of the room. And I am finally completely free.